AP.
Commander, good morning. It's Don Melvin with Associated Press. As you're aware, there continue to be questions about whether the mission has changed along the way or whether it continues to be narrowly defined in terms of protecting civilians. And your final sentence was that the campaign will continue until they stop attacking. Gaddafi forces stop attacking. Are there any circumstances that you can foresee under which Gaddafi could stay and NATO would declare the mission over and it would go? If all the forces returned, if this, if that, are there any circumstances you can imagine under which Gaddafi would stay and NATO would declare the mission finished?
Thank you, and that's a very good question. NATO is very clear on the task that's been set to it by the United Nations Security Council. It gave us 2 resolutions which enabled us to carry out the mandate. That is an embargo, which we've already talked about, and a no-fly zone, and to protect civilian lives. Whilst we are seeing civilian lives being attacked and put at risk, we continue to work within that mandate. The next part of the question really is a political question, and that is if we were to move into any other area and decide what may or may not be decided as a ceasefire. That's a political decision. Until that is made, the commander at the operational level will continue this mission within the mandate that he's been given. Juana, would you like to add anything to that?
Indeed. As you know, the 3 clear military goals have been set by foreign ministers at the meeting in Berlin in April, and they were a stop to all attacks against civilians, a withdrawal of all Gaddafi military and paramilitary forces to their bases and barracks, and full unhindered humanitarian access. Those are the 3 clear military goals. The mission will continue, and we will ramp up the pressure until those goals are met. You have a follow-up question.
If I could just quickly follow up. The mission being to protect civilians. We have a civil war. You have referred to anti-Gaddafi forces. If there is action between forces on both sides involving no civilians, is that something that NATO takes no action about? There not being civilians involved? I mean, can Gaddafi forces, in fact, if fired upon, return fire?
As I've said, there are skirmishes across the country, and we watch and we monitor the situation on the ground. Our mandate is clear, though. We will interdict forces that are inflicting casualties or putting the civilian population of Libya at risk.
And you may have seen yesterday's mention of possible elections in Libya within 3 months by Gaddafi's son. It's once again an instance of what I would call a cynical PR ploy, because it's hard to imagine that after 41 years in which Gaddafi abolished elections, the constitutions, political parties, trade unions, overnight a dictator would turn into a democrat. So what we and the whole international community wants to see is action rather than words. The United Nations Security Council resolution mentions a ceasefire. There should be clear moves towards an end to attacks, the immediate end of all attacks and threat of attacks against civilians, a withdrawal of Gaddafi's forces to bases, and full and unimpeded humanitarian access. Reuters.
Yes, David Brunstrom from Reuters. I just wanted to ask a follow-up on your comment about the sustainability of the operation. You're saying it can be sustained as long as you choose. Apart from what you've said about Sweden extending its mission, has there been any other response to the appeal of the Secretary-General for additional resources to sustain the mission? And given all the other comments we've heard from General Labrial and others expressing concern about the long-term sustainability, my understanding is that the French aircraft carrier can only remain in the theatre until the autumn. If the conflict were to continue after the date when that aircraft carrier needs to leave, is there any contingency to replace it? And if not, how can you sustain current level of operations if necessary?
David, I'll leave allies and partners to announce their contributions themselves. Those are national decisions that, as we've seen in the case of Sweden, often have to be taken through national parliaments, and that is right and proper, and that's how it should be. But we are fully confident that we have the resources, we have the commitment it takes to see this mission through, and time is not on Gaddafi's side. Mike, if you want to add anything to that?
No, I think it's the same really applies as I said on Tuesday and on previous occasions. The commander will operate with the resources that is given to him, and any military prudent planner will look ahead. He'll decide what resources are available to him, and as we have seen in the past, some nations are able to contribute more or a new asset to the campaign, and the commander is grateful when that happens. There may be occasions when a nation feels that they need to take a resource out of the operation for a period of time, perhaps to continue training or something of that effect, and the commander will work within the resources he has. It's not going to affect his ultimate aim, and we will continue to prosecute that mandate until it's complete.
We do have questions in Naples.
Buongiorno, Elio Tedone, Agenzia Italia. Vorrei un commento sulla proposta fatta dal Ministro dell'Interno italiano di utilizzare l'embargo non solo per bloccare le navi che arrivano nei porti libici, ma anche per quelle che partono cariche di profughi anche verso l'Italia. Maroni ha detto questo è fattibile se la NATO lo vuole. Un commento su questo.
I'd like to have a comment on yours on the proposal made by the Home Minister Maroni yesterday, according to whom the embargo could be used not only for the incoming ships incoming into Libyan ports, but also for the outgoing ones with refugees on board. According to Maroni, the embargo could be used in this case too, and I'd like to have a comment of yours on this, please.
Okay, the only thing I would say is the United Nations resolution of the embargo is clear. It discusses and states that the role is to stop weapons and facilities and equipment that can be taken into Libya to deal with inflicting harm on civilians. That is the role of the embargo. The sea is an open area and can be used by shipping, and it's an individual nation's responsibility and choice as to what shipping comes into its waters.
Eva Kallinger from the German news magazine Focus. You have showed us the video from Slitan, I think, of the Gaddafi's rockets from the moschee. Can you tell what you can do there as NATO in Slitan now?
In Slitan, or with regard to that particular incident? To this incident. Well, we have information, surveillance, reconnaissance capabilities to monitor situations of this type. And what we do tactically beyond watching the event that happened in the mosque and where those resources were taken afterwards is a tactical decision. And we can watch across the whole of Libya with our various ISR platforms, and when they're in a safe situation so that we can interdict or strike them away from civilians, we can take all of our calculations. We will deal with them as and when that position is known to us, and we'll remove them from the battle space. Thank you.
Back to Brussels.
We have one more question over there.
Viktor Kalashnikov, representing Zahid news agency from Ukraine. There have been previously reports about mercenaries and some kinds of military advisors, probably even soldiers or different sorts of fighters coming to Libya to fight on Gaddafi's side. In particular, in some media, countries as sources of such supplying such people been mentioned like Serbia, Belarus, and so on. Also, in Israeli newspaper, I quite recently read reports that allegedly a foreign embassy in Tripolis deployed some equipment to protect Gaddafi forces from airstrikes, NATO airstrike. Could you somehow reflect or comment on such information and reports? Thank you.
Thank you. A complex question, I think, because I got it in part because of the communications here. First of all, any nation or any people, individuals or mercenaries who wish to side with pro-Gaddafi forces and inflict harm on the civilian population will be dealt with by NATO in the best way it can by removing them from the battle space so that they cannot carry out that task that they consider acceptable, along with the atrocities that we've read about and heard about. And the International Criminal Court has made various statements on that. If other nations were to put personnel on the ground, that is a national call, and it would not be for the operational commander to judge what another nation would wish to do. Juana, do you have anything to add as well?
No, I have not seen those reports that you're referring to. If there are any other questions in Brussels or in Naples for a last round?
No questions from Naples.
Many thanks indeed, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.